Welcome to this part 2 of this Olympic New York possibility special. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, it's in the description below. Go see it before. I'll wait. Okay, I'm done waiting. So, the Olympics this year have been a reasonable success. The U.S. has just beaten Canada for women's hockey for the first time in 20 years. We had North Koreans cheering the U.S. for once. If only because one woman forgot the script. So to recap what I did last week, I looked at New York City, at what it could do to facilitate a bid for a future Summer Olympics. In part 1, I looked at some facilities that could be used rather than building new ones. And this episode, I'm going to take it the next logical step, which is what needs to be built. First off, I didn't really talk much about last week were some of the smaller venue events, that is swimming, that is archery, that is BMX. For the former two, you could really put their stadiums just about anywhere, really. You need a little more space just because you need more stands for spectators, but other than that, they don't really take up too much space. As for BMX and other motocross type sports, Staten Island's pretty hilly. Another possibility I raised is rather than using an existing stadium like MetLife Stadium, that you could build a new Olympic Stadium. Now, there is a big challenge in doing so, which is available space. As in, there isn't really much of that in the New York area. And we can't even look to the 2012 bid because the location that they proposed for their West Side Stadium is now being used for other commercial and residential development. Still, if they want to go and build a new Olympic Stadium, there are two locations. The first is a place called Sunnyside Yard. That is one of the major commuter and long-distance rail yards in the New York area. In theory, you could cover up the whole yard and build an Olympic Stadium above that. If you think that's crazy, that's exactly what the 2012 bid wanted to do on the west side of New York. The one negative I could see about this location is that it's not the best of accessibility. There are several subway lines in the area, and yes, you could build a commuter rail station, but Queens Boulevard is about the biggest street there is, so anyone trying to drive through the area is going to be stuck in nightmare traffic, I believe. A better location would be a different rail yard, albeit one that doesn't really exist anymore, and is now known as Liberty State Park. For those who don't know, Liberty State Park was built on former rail yards in the Hudson County area of New Jersey, a lot of which is still being cleaned up from contaminants. Now, there are some plans to build a river into that area, but in theory, there's a lot of land there, so you could build an Olympic Stadium and probably 2 or 3 other smaller arenas like archery and swimming in that yard. Plus, it's well connected. There's a light rail line nearby. Interstate 78 runs right by it. Now, ultimately, as I wrap up this presentation, do I think that this bid is realistic? No. The United States is already going to be hosting a Summer Olympics in Los Angeles in 2028. In my opinion, another U.S. Olympics would not even be considered until 2050 at the earliest. If we go that far out, it becomes really, really hard to plan what would be needed. However, do I think New York will host an Olympics sometime in the future? In my opinion, New York is just too big a market, too big a spotlight for the International Olympic Committee to ignore. And while for the first half of the 21st century we'll spotlight some other cities, let's not forget the old Frank Sinatra tune. If I can't make it here, I can't make it anywhere. That is it for the Special Olympics section. Joe, I'll see you next week.